So we spoke briefly about man time and what man time is gathered around. And as men, we don't really care that you, a woman, know more about fantasy football than your husband. We don't care if your political commentary is particularly incisive. We don't care if your barbecue sauce is better than your husband's recipe. What we care about is that we're dudes getting to hang out with each other. And the sad truth is that if there are four dudes hanging out talking about these things and a woman intrudes herself into that, once man time has been established, by the way, so we talked in the first video about how man time gets established. Once it's been established and a woman intrudes into it, it's ruined. The discussion that was happening can't happen anymore. So the whole social interaction has to start from scratch, which is why you have gotten the impression more than once that your husband and his friends never have anything interesting to talk about. It's because they were talking about interesting stuff and then you showed up. Now, if you give it enough time and they can get past their resentment of your interrupting the man time, then interesting conversation will start back up and you'll be included. But the fact is that what was going before was happening with a particularly male dynamic, which would be disrespectful to a woman. And so it just kind of comes to this clattering halt when you show up. We talked in the first video about there being certain topics that aren't actually exclusively masculine, but when men start talking about them in earnest, they do it in such an over-the-top masculine way that, in a way that they would never do if there were women around. So the dynamic is fragile enough that the insertion of a female, it's fun to use the word insertion from a feminine point of view, it will be completely disruptive. But if you think about how that works with woman time, it's the exact same way. Men are less likely to intrude in these than women are to intrude in man time. But if there are a group of four women gathered around a table talking about a mutual colleague at work, talking about childbirth, talking about couponing, talking about any of the other stereotypical things that I could just toss out there, if a dude sits down at that same table and makes it clear, I'm not just passing through, I'm here to, drink tea with you guys, how does that group feel? It feels intruded upon. It feels it can't work with the same dynamic that it had been. Now let's make clear, we're not talking here about social interactions that are simply too crude for the ladies. Boys can be a part of man time. There are different sorts of man time, just there are different sorts of woman time. And honestly, knowing a couple of midwives and being around a couple of ladies' gossip circles, I'm not really sure men are much more crass than women. So it's not about the crassness. It's about that male bonding and the building up of maleness, which is why boys can be a part of man time, depending, of course, on what is being talked about or what the day is all about. Now, there are a lot of archetypes that we can fall into when we talk about this sort of stuff. And I'm looking off camera because I've got my little tea ball shaped like a teapot. I just pulled out of this mug. So here I am with tea balls and tea, not particularly masculine, because a lot of these archetypes really are silly. There's no getting around this archetype, male and female. Is there variegation within that? Yes. Are they archetypes and are they true? Yes. And it helps the male, as I believe it helps the female, to have reinforcement, to have interaction that helps reinforce this identity. I believe that's probably the 8th time I've said this in these 2 videos, so I'll stop there and let you know that the 3rd video will be about how to break into these sacred circles of manliness. We described in this video how just one little taint of femininity ruins the male time, the man time. But there is a way to break into man time and not have it be disruptive and annoying. That'll be the next video. Peace.